just want you to understand what amplification is. This is what is amplification: targeting with the audible activity while you're stalking in the path. This is P.O.C. And this is what they were doing at 4:59 in the morning. Alrighty, and that's the pattern of conduct. And Carla Lopez is group stalking with the state, okay? This is the pattern of conduct, and that's the state group stalking as they're doing 24 hours a day, flying over my apartment while engineered light is appearing on my ceiling. That's impossible light activity. The entity is maintaining a specific environment, and the state is engaged in 24-hour surveillance using helicopters. Those are specifically demons that are affiliated with the Los Angeles Police Department. And they're monitoring on a communication device, by the way, as I'm sending emails, and this is relevant to what is the business of speaker companies, which is engaged in federal stalking in concert with that state. The distance where that helicopter is, you're talking about what is the volume, the amplification of that audible activity. And this is ongoing perpetual crossing of path. They're not going anywhere right now. Those are demons, and all they do are engaging in what is ongoing crossing of path, in the same way that the people of the state aren't going anywhere. They're maintaining ongoing activity all around. And just like you have already seen, this is the address, the location where the sunrise and the sunset is occurring, where at any point in the day where the light source appears, it appears directly above me. It's rising in alignment to me, hillside. It's setting in alignment to me, bedroom window over building 1818. Okay, replete with what is impossible light activity, as you've seen at all times of the day. This is criminal conduct in concert with speaker companies. This is impunity that's exhibited by a speaker company's third-party group stalker. Maria Solis Alvarez calling the phone, which is audible activity creation with simultaneity to my preparation to send the email. She's going to federal prison. That's the federal stalking conduct. While the entity is engaged in surveillance in helicopter, they're monitoring on communication devices. So is Carlo Lopez. He's group stalking by presence on the property, while the entity is acting directly, stalking in a helicopter, which is a threat to the target individual's life. Also, while you're monitoring documentation, that's the impermissible threat. All the reasons why you're going to federal prison as a third party working at the facilitating venue. And you're not working. You're a demon, and you're group stalking, and the malicious guise of that same criminal system operated by that public entity is the fact that you are an employee. That's the malicious and the mental illness revealed by that entity that's engaged in that state system. It is the people of the state who are facilitating that criminal conduct. And it's the same for those that are living at the facilitating venue, those that are coming in to engage in what is work at the facilitating venue. And it is currently, again, 9:03 a.m. And I'm pointing at the blue Kia that is a third-party group stalker, Carla Lopez, who's simultaneously being documented, engaged in criminal presence while the entity is crossing path again. And this is at 9:03 a.m. LAPD is not going anywhere. All they're doing was crossing path. And the distance that they're at, and then the volume as it's heard inside of my office. This is the same thing while you're looking at them flying in circles, as I captured over the weekend while the light source was hovering directly over my apartment. That's the same demon-possessed agency that is group stalking on an ongoing basis. Don't forget what they were doing while they were flying in circles, as I captured that in 2 separate videos. That's the same entity that engaged in assault and battery as an entity while a light source is hovering at this same property at 5:20 in the afternoon. While the ongoing documentation, which I reminded you about yesterday, where the light source is so-called rising at 8:20 in the morning. And I captured that documentation, by the way, on May 7th. And so the totality of that documentation, May 7th, 2024, is the day that this entity, including the Los Angeles Police Department, engaged in what is a documented assault and battery as an entity engaged in the pattern of conduct. By virtue of that time frame, that was 8:20 in the morning, reference my recordings that I captured yesterday, because I referenced May 7th, the sun that's outside of my living room window, aiming engineered light, and then the engineered light that's also in my bedroom in the depths of my apartment. And then yesterday evening, I'm reminding you about what is the so-called sunset, while that engineered light is filling my bedroom, and the so-called sun is outside of my living room window, my bedroom window. And that's the same apartment, a documented so-called sunrise, morning presence of this light source until the evening. That's not the natural environment, and none of that coexists with what is the light source remaining over me at the Ontario Museum of History and Arts, where I showed you the video documentation of what is the maintenance of the light source pursuant to that same pattern, which is never the natural environment. So what is going on now? The demon-possessed agency, the state of California, acting via the LAPD, is engaging in what is a pattern of covering up its light source. And like I've stated, you will, first of all, never forget what was already documented. documented. That's why you document, okay? Because you're not forgetting what was never going to naturally be the case, that there is a sun ever in alignment to my apartment, aiming any sunlight, aiming any, at the same time, any engineered light on the ceilings, above my door, bedroom door, moving about on the bedroom walls while that so-called sun is outside of the living room window. And that same alleged sun is at the same property, necessarily so, to be in alignment, and I'm looking at it. And engineered light is also moving in the depths of my bedroom, on my bedroom walls, on my carpet, underneath my bed, and onto my bedroom wall, as though that is also the sunset at the same address. On May 7, 2024, that same entity, the LAPD, engaged in what was a documented criminal act, for which, again, every employee of speaker companies is going to be prosecuted for. All third parties that live at Alvarado Gardens are going to be prosecuted for. The Los Angeles Police Department, that is the state of California, is going to be prosecuted for, literally while you're looking at them group stalking in a helicopter now in the workplace while the pattern of conduct is underway. The entity is engaging on May 7th. This is the same address, that video that I showed you yesterday, showing an ongoing juxtaposition to the pattern of conduct in Ontario at the Ontario Museum of History and Arts. That video I showed you here on May 7th, the light source is outside of my living room window at 8:22 in the morning approximately. The assault and battery by the entity engaged in the pattern of conduct, where you saw demons attacking me and pursuing me, following me across the street and pacing, driving an engineered light while that light source is directly over me on Alvarado Street at 521. I just want to be clear. That is, first of all, impossible light that's covering all of the streets where the people are pacing up and down. Those are demons in traffic monitoring in concert with the demons that were engaging in what is assault and battery and federal stalking, because they are hostile of the fact that I'm documenting the people of the state that are engaging in monitoring by virtue of crossing path in traffic, which is the state's systematic means of surveillance, in concert with those demons that you just saw fly over at 9:03 in the morning by helicopter. So I'm bringing all this to your remembrance when you're looking at what is the covered up light source. It's not any deviation from the pattern of conduct. First of all, the engineered environment remains at all times. I've shown you my shadow that surrounds my person while I'm walking outside at nighttime. Just like you saw yesterday, the light source as it's unveiled, and I put that in air quotes, in the middle of the day. And where is it unveiled? At the top of my head, directly above me in its zenith, as I open the door to my leasing office. And it will never be, in any way alter from being the specific environment as opposed to the natural environment, where a police department would like to maintain that they're engaged in what is absolutely lawful conduct. It is a specific pattern of conduct, not only the presence, but also the environment where that presence is occurring. And that's what the LAPD is engaging in, and hiding that light source. And I mean hiding, because this is a demonic environment and this is demonic activity. There's nothing natural to it. The entity is maintaining a light source over the property, and with knowledge of the fact that that is being documented, that is what is behind covering up the light source. Yet and still, there is never going to be any deviation from what remains the specific environment. And the entity is engaged in federal stalking on the venue of the internet. So the world needs to recognize this is speaker companies. That is indeed a group stalker engaged in what is terrorism with the state, and that is why the entity in that specific environment is using helicopters to engage in the criminal elements of monitoring that are demons affiliated with a corrupt law enforcement agency that are practicing demonic activity for the criminal purpose of keeping an American citizen under surveillance, in concert with the people of the state, including speaker companies and the employee of speaker companies who's engaged in criminal presence, not in any lawful exercise of a constitutional right of being on the job. It's called group stalking. Carla Lopez, license plate 9FCX513. And they're doing so also on the venue of the internet. And that's what I want to speak to. It is within an ongoing documented pattern of conduct occurring again while you're looking at the specific environment inside of my apartment. This is the same venue, which is relevant to what I just documented right now. It's called Crossing a Path. This is the same entity and the same venue where on May 7th, a week ago, where this entity engaged in what is assault and battery, where the sun is outside of my living room window as though it's rising at that hillside at 8:22 in the morning, and the assault and battery that I'm capturing at the same property standing on Alvarado Street, and that light source is hovering directly above me when you're looking at that assault and battery under the light source surrounded by engineered light. And that is never the natural environment, okay? And it's also not going to be, again, over my head at the Victoria Gardens parking garage, like I fully exposed and documented. Okay. It's also not going to be over the Ontario Museum of History and Arts, like I showed you yesterday, while the entity is maintaining the light source at that museum, both in the morning and into the evening, where you're looking at stalking in helicopters, which is what the state of California's criminal pattern of conduct consists of. It is, again, 9:10 a.m. This is documentation showing to exactly what is supporting that which I'm advocating, which is federal prison for those providing an intolerable level of criminal facilitation, living at the crime scene, quote unquote, working at the crime scene where you are nothing other than a demon, which is exhibited through the pattern of conduct itself, and doing so in concert with a corrupt government that uses helicopters, a well-documented pattern of conduct by the entity, and doing so by flying directly over my office, amplification while you are flying in relevant position to my office. And this is exactly what I was documenting while the entity was group stalking at nightfall, monitoring me using my communication device, which is my internet operated television, all right, and on my cell phone. It is currently 9:10 a.m. This is P.O.C.